Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Agenda for Change meeting. We're going to talk about technical assistance, and so you are very keen and you have arrived early. So just bear with us. We're going to start in a minute. Uh, and just I see people are coming in now, and so, uh, I'm very happy to see many of you here today. So for those who are joining us here, I would like you to just type in the chat box just your name and where you calling from. Um, and while we do that for the next minute, then people are coming in, and then we'll start in a minute. And as usual, we do have interpretation. So choose your channel. Choose your channel. Okay. Yes. Welcome everyone who have just joined. Uh, please type your name, where you coming from in the chat box, so we get to know you. We get to know who is in the room. Yes, it's great to see a lot of people here. So I'm just going to wait for another 15 seconds and we'll get started. Okay, great. Excellent, excellent. So, yes, welcome everyone to today's Agenda for Change meeting. We have a very exciting topic here. Today we are going to discuss technical assistance, to discuss our experience on technical assistance. Many of us are involved in technical assistance one way or the other. So we get to hear from many of our colleagues here the experience on it. So today next slide. So let's start off with Paul. So what do you think, in your experience, is the biggest barrier to embedding technical assistance in government system? So there are 5 options. Okay, so have everyone entered the answer? All right.
I can go ahead and end it and share.
Okay, great.
Here is
So
our...
thank you for those of you who have answered. So seems like we have weak institutional anchoring as the most popular choice in terms of barrier, followed by short funding cycle, inflexible financing, and lack of government ownership from the outset. So yes, so next slide. Oh yeah, yeah. So we do have today we do have interpretation. So choose your language, and also speak slowly, speak clearly. It will help our interpreter. And stay mute if you are not speaking. Uh, next slide. So here is the agenda for today. So first, we will have Ben to tell us about overview of the technical assistance facility, and then we'll get to hear from our colleagues in Cambodia, in Guatemala, in Rwanda of the experience. Next, we'll have a short panel discussion and Q&A, key lessons, and then lastly, recommendations and closing. So yeah, so I am Tommy Ngai. I work at WaterA UK, and today I am very happy to have Benjamin Harris from our consult here, and he will take it from here. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you, Tommy. Can you jump to the next slide, please? So just quickly, as Tommy has already said, later on today, we're going to hear some experiences from the technical assistance facility from Cambodia, from Guatemala, and from Rwanda. The speakers will introduce themselves later on, but I'm really happy to say that alongside colleagues from Agenda for Change, we got representation from government and also implementation partners in each of those countries to explain a bit about how the TA facility worked in their context and some of the learning they come out with. So they'll be speaking after I give quite a short introduction to the TA facility and what we found. Next slide, please. So just a very brief overview. The technical assistance facility, so managed by Agenda for Change, was initially established in 2019 for phase 1. And this was to support Agenda for Change members to improve their capacity for system strengthening approaches and also improve the capacity of other stakeholders and partners in their contexts. And this was funded with support from the Vital Foundation. So we didn't look at phase 1 explicitly in our work because that was previously done. Phase 2 was launched in 2023 with just under $500,000 of funding for a 3-year period. And really, the slight shift in focus this year was trying to ensure that the technical assistance activities also helped to strengthen the Agenda for Change country collaboration with external capacity support from technical experts to help improve that technical assistance. So it covered 5 countries. As we said, today we're hearing from Guatemala, Cambodia, and Rwanda. And there were also activities which took place in Ghana and Uganda. And the study that our consult undertook covered all 5 countries. Next slide, please. Can we jump to the next slide? Thank you. So AgroConsult were engaged to look at the impact study for the TA facility. I mean, just quickly, why look at impact? And for us, the core problem really is, does technical assistance, especially at small scale, and this work was at relatively small scale, contribute to systems change? Can we see how relatively small focus activities lead to higher scale changes, which help strengthen the WASH systems in which they take place? For this impact study, we're looking specifically at the work done by Agenda for Change members and the external organizations they engaged with. And the question was really, what does it take for technical assistance to be truly part of the system? How can we make sure that these aren't just one-off activities, that they really become part of the local WASH systems and lead to longer-term change? Next slide, please. So just a quick overview. We'll look at examples from 3 of the cases later on, hearing from the people who are most closely involved in those. But I think it's fair to say that in one facility, in 5 cases, we saw some very different outcomes. In some of the cases, it was clear to us as external assessors that the technical assistance has already helped influence policy and practice and is contributing to the ongoing development of the WASH sector. We saw examples where the work that had been done through this small scale work had been embedded in government processes and was being taken forward. In some of the other cases, whilst the activity itself was clearly valued, it was a useful exercise. There's an open question, if you like, as to, so what next? How is this going to lead to development of the sector? How is this going to be taken forward? And we saw that progress is uncertain, or in some cases constrained by external factors beyond the control of A4C members who are leading the technical assistance. Go to the next slide, please. In terms of what we saw from our work that made a difference, and this is something I'm really glad that our contributors from the different countries will focus more detail on later on. The first one is, does the facility have the flexibility to support emerging needs and government priorities? In some of the cases, we saw that initial ideas for technical assistance were changed and altered to respond to government requests to focus on different areas and align with government priorities. That was a key sort of factor in whether or not technical assistance made a difference. But most important for me, I think, was the technical assistance really anchored in formal institutions and processes and fully co-owned by government? What we mean by here is, was there an existing process, an existing institution, an existing team within government that really worked alongside A4C members and external technical support to embed that within government processes and really critically own the recommendations, own the resulting actions that came out of the TA, so there was already someone in place to take those forward. And I think you will see some examples, I think particularly example in Rwanda and Guatemala, and how that was really critical. I think it was also important there was a clear rationale for how the TA will contribute to wider systems change. I think in the best cases, we saw was a really clear understanding of, we've got this small activity, this is how it will contribute to wider change, working alongside other interventions, other programs, other processes which are taking place. And when you don't have that very clear rationale from the outset, it's much harder for TA to make a higher level difference. And last but not least is the TA facilitated by active systems actors. That is not just disinterested external actors, but people who really understand the WASH system, who engage with it, understand the nuances of change in that WASH system. You can go to the next slide, please. So just two last slides for me, and these are questions I'd like to pose to you to think about as we go through the three presentations from the countries, and also then we go into the panel discussion. The first one is, how can we better understand the impact of TA? So we were engaged to do an impact assessment, but the reality is it was very hard for us to understand sometimes the higher level impact of the TA. We can see the immediate sort of reach, the immediate results of this TA, how many people are engaged, what's changed in terms of learning outputs, how have processes changed. But if we're really looking at higher level systems change, which might take place over a much longer time frame, it was quite hard for us to do that. And I think that is clearly a challenge, and it's not something that's limited to Agenda for Change and A4C members. I think the WASH sector as a whole is grappling with, how can we demonstrate the impact of system strengthening interventions. I think that challenge is accentuated when looking at relatively small scale TA. But one thing I want to think about is, how can implementers and funders better understand systems change, which TA can contribute to? And is it possible to have a clear theory of change for small scale technical assistance? What we mean by this is something which goes from thinking about relevance, is there a clear rationale for the activity, through cohesion, how is the TA taking account of other initiatives from government and other actors, the sustainability. From the start, do we have a clear idea of how this is going to be taken forward? And also system change. What are the specific ultimate changes that we think we can contribute to? So rather than having a vague idea of impact, can we be more specific on that? Next slide, please. And the second question, and maybe this is a slightly provocative one, is, are WASH actors ready to provide the right sort of TA? I think it's fair to say that in this TA facility, in phase 2, which we looked at, a lot of the activities skewed towards upstream activities, focusing on coordination, planning, capacity building. Now, those are clearly important and are a vital part of any wash system. But I think there's a really critical question about whether or not there's enough focus on downstream activities, which are more closely linked to delivery of wash services. And I think, as we're hearing from the countries, the example from Guatemala, where they looked at regulation, is probably the outlier there, where they were thinking more about some downstream issues. So some of the questions for us are, how can TA facilities like this be used to address downstream issues? Which I think is important because there's a closer link to service delivery. Perhaps it's easier for us to demonstrate some of the impact then of the TA. But also, are current WASH actors well positioned to provide this TA? Is there a risk that sometimes, as WASH actors, we revert to providing technical assistance on a type of activities that we feel most comfortable around, that are within our comfort zone? And are we ready to move into areas which are more technical and could be more challenging and mark a departure from what we're used to? So just those two questions I'd like you to think about as you're going through the presentations and the panel discussion, and come back to later on. Next slide, please. So you'll be glad to know that's it from me. As I said, we've got 6 speakers, 2 from each country. And I think with that, it's for me to hand over to Sokun and Kim Sreng from Cambodia to talk about the work they did there through the TA facility. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Ben, and also hi everyone. My name is Sukung Su. I'm a head of program with World in Cambodia, and it's the agenda for change in Cambodia country collaboration representative. Nice to meet all of you. So maybe I just only share about what we have been doing for the system strengthening and also through the technical assistance facility. So the background in Cambodia, the government in Cambodia, especially the Ministry of Rural Development, who have a mandate to promote the rural was in Cambodia, and they have a strategic vision they want to see by 2030. They want to see the 100% of the total population in Cambodia, they access to basic service to wash, and also 50% access to safely managed water, and also 75% access to safely managed sanitation. So to reach their strategic goal, they set 4 dimensions. One, they focus on enabling environment, and second thing, they focus on water, sanitation, hygiene, and also behavior change. So how is the technical assistance contribute, especially related to the enabling environment, that they try to promote the sector leadership and also human capital development that can promote the multiple stakeholder collaboration and also strengthen the sector performance to increase more investment to deliver the strategic plan. So as the agenda for change country collaboration in Cambodia, we have opportunity to get the technical assistance fund that can help us to promote the collective action to working with our local member here. So this project, we have 2 NGO that implement this project. One is we call the War Skill Development Organization. It is the one of the local NGO that have a specialization in provide voice training to the government and also non-government actor at national and subnational level. And second actor is the Center for Sustainable Water. It is the one of our local member who specialization in promoting the young professional programming and also promote youth leadership in thriving the water and sanitation and hygiene. So through this technical assistance fund, we want to build the next generation, especially promote more youth interested in water sector. And second thing, we looking for the long-term investment in the sector to try achieving the Cambodian Sustainable Development Goal, especially the goal number 6. And the way that we do here is we develop the water system strengthening to provide capacity building to national and subnational level who have a role and responsibility in provide the water service to the people. And the second thing we focus on promote the next generation by building the youth as the agent of change for future a driver that promote the system application. And we also working with the university and also Ministry of Rural Development who are the co-implementation in this program. Can you move to the next slide? So it is the impacts through this project. We support the 20 youth who are the fresh graduated and also mid the career that they study at university, especially their background related to environmental and water engineering, that they are in the future leader in the sector. And for the government who are responsible for providing the water and sanitation service to people, we provide the capacity building and also train around more than 30 stakeholders, especially the government official, that contribute to improve the performance that align with the capacity development that set by the Ministry of Rural Development. And we could see the system change. One is the was system strengthening or building block integrated into the national strategic plan. If the currently the Ministry of Rural Development, they designed the framework for the new strategic plan, they focus on the system strengthening approach, and also the technical working group at national and subnational, they value about the system strengthening to promote water and sanitation. And it is the part of the platform that can promote the collective action and also the mobilize the resource to deliver this joint action plan. And related to the learning, we could see that implementing through the NGO is a part I promote the local lead, the system strengthening. It really linked to the government direction that they promote the locally lead development also. And the second thing, when we invest on youth, is this like the long-term investment because they are become to the sector leader in the future, that they can use their own potential to promote the innovative way of working, and also to try to use some new technology to working with the local authority on that. So I give this floor to Kamsen to talking more about their experience as the youth representative in this project. Yes, Kamsen, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bong Sukong. Good evening from Cambodia, everyone. I am Kim Sring. I'm a co-leader of a youth project on sanitations. Can you move to next slide? Yeah, back to 2024, I was selected to participate young professional in WAS, which hosted by CSW, and also luckily my team was awarded. That's why I have a fun to run my project. This is the journey or milestone of my youth project. We work on the sanitation, and at the first we did the treatment implementation and also toilet repair. We choose a rural primary school because we believe that if we spread the awareness on WAS to the young students, so they can adapt easily, and also they can spread the information to others, especially their family. That's why we choose primary school student. And also when we came to the primary rural school, we also see that the toilet was destroyed, so that's why we repair it and also install the waste treatment system as well. After install and also repair the toilet, we also did the wash awareness to spread the more information about water, hygiene, and sanitation, including methanol MHM, focus on women and also other information related to environment. And moreover, we also conduct the water quality testing, analysis after installation to ensure that the system is work and also have a quality and also effective. That it can release the water to the environment, like for flowering the flower in the school as well. And after we complete the project, we also share the experience how we complete or how we did or run the project to other youth that they have inside the same as me, and also they are working in the same sector as a wash. And also we discuss and sharing each other to gain a more insight and information as well as knowledge related to was. Moreover, during the sharing session, we also learn from each other, because some people they work on uh, drinking water, so I can learn from them can learn from me. So I think this project is really meaningful for me, and also I thank you for Agenda for Change for the fund that make my team run this project as well. Thank you. That's all from my presentations.
Thank you, Cambodia team. Now we are going to Guatemala.
Buenos días, es un gusto saludarles y conocerles por este medio. Mi nombre es Wilbert Velázquez, yo trabajo para Helvetas en Guatemala. Somos miembros de Agenda for Change y el día de hoy pues queremos compartir la experiencia que hemos venido desarrollando para el establecimiento de una entidad reguladora en el país. También me acompaña el representante de gobierno, que es el ingeniero Oliverio Pau. Él es director de la Dirección de Agua y Saneamiento del Ministerio de Salud, que es la entidad rectora en Guatemala. Entonces, para contextualizar, esta intervención o esta asistencia técnica parte de una realidad estructural de WASH en Guatemala, porque actualmente existe la rectoría, que lo tiene el Ministerio de Salud, y también existen los prestadores de servicio, que son las municipalidades a nivel urbano y las comunidades a nivel rural. Pero no hay una función regulatoria consolidada a nivel nacional. Entonces, el vacío no es una ausencia de actores, sino es más una ausencia de reglas claras, de supervisión, de rendición de cuentas. Y hemos visto que cuando no existe una regulación clara, pues la calidad del servicio depende mucho de los prestadores, municipalidades o comunidades. Algunas de las consecuencias de la ausencia de esta entidad reguladora es que hay una alta fragmentación institucional. En algunos casos también hay duplicidad de funciones o vacíos de funciones. Hay un cumplimiento limitado, porque las normas sí existen, hay diversidad de normas, pero no siempre se aplican. Otra situación es que la sostenibilidad ha sido débil, los sistemas eventualmente fallan. También la calidad y la continuidad pues es muy heterogénea en todo el país. Entonces, por lo tanto, hay una débil protección al usuario. Realmente el vacío regulatorio no es un problema administrativo, sino afecta directamente la sostenibilidad y la experiencia del usuario. En Guatemala esto realmente es relevante, porque una buena parte importante de la prestación depende de las estructuras municipales y de las comunidades que tienen actualmente pues capacidades diversas, ¿verdad? En algunos casos son un poco limitadas. No todos los municipios tienen la misma capacidad técnica y financiera. Entonces, por lo tanto, sin un marco regulatorio, la calidad del servicio termina dependiendo de lo local, ¿verdad? Desde las comunidades, que más que el derecho del usuario. Entonces, esta respuesta de la asistencia técnica no fue diseñar una institución desde afuera, sino acompañar como agenda para el cambio un proceso nacional para abrir la discusión sobre una arquitectura que ya existe del sector que puede ser viable. La asistencia técnica ha sido más una facilitadora del proceso, ¿verdad? No esperábamos sustituir el liderazgo nacional, siempre ha sido el gobierno que han venido liderando este proceso y esa razón es por la cual el día de hoy pues, me acompaña un representante del gobierno. El objetivo final de esta asistencia técnica no es crear otra institución, sino fortalecer la gobernanza actual del sector para pues, asegurar que los servicios sean más sostenibles y equitativos. Entonces, voy a dejar el espacio para que el ingeniero Oliverio Pau, que es el director de la Dirección de Agua Potable y Saneamiento del Ministerio, pueda continuar con presentar qué es lo que hemos hecho o qué ha cambiado de este proceso. Adelante, ingeniero.
Muchas gracias, Wilber. Un saludo para todos desde Guatemala, que ha implicado el tema de abordar tanto rectoría en agua potable y saneamiento y la brecha que hace falta con respecto a un ente regulador que fije sistemas tarifarios para la sostenibilidad de los proyectos de agua potable y saneamiento. Bueno, ¿qué ha cambiado? ¿Y por qué era una prioridad el fortalecer la gobernanza? Porque sí es necesario hacerlo. Asegurar, para poder tener un aseguramiento de una sostenibilidad en los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento, así como también de tener más transparencia o garantizar los derechos del usuario, tener una rendición de cuentas más clara, así como impulsar una recuperación de costos y que sean en algún momento devueltas a una sostenibilidad constante y por sobre todo mejorar la coordinación intersectorial, porque al final el sector de agua potable y saneamiento son varias instituciones que están vinculadas. ¿Y en qué hemos cambiado? Podríamos decir que en el tema regulatorio, pues ya entró en una agenda pública, ya se cuenta con un conocimiento de que es necesario tener un ente regulador que fije las reglas claras para ver cuánto se podría manejar de acuerdo a estudios socioeconómicos en el área urbana y en el área rural, así como lo hacen muchos otros países. Ya se cuenta con un borrador, una iniciativa, una propuesta de ley, y así como también la discusión ya de situaciones de regulación, tarifas y calidad. ¿Qué señales de sostenibilidad existen? Pues ya se tiene, digamos, una articulación del sector. Estamos trabajando de manera articulada o estamos trabajando de manera coordinada la parte multisectorial también, la sociedad civil, se tiene una hoja de ruta para poder continuar con el proyecto y por sobre todo la inclusión del tema de regulación en una actualización de política pública que estamos trabajando desde la Rectoría de Agua Potable y Saneamiento en el Ministerio de Salud Pública y Asistencia Social. La siguiente filmina, por favor. The next slide, please. Thank you. En este caso, ¿qué sigue siendo difícil? Pues se mantienen riesgos de calidad, sostenibilidad, de protección al usuario, esa sería la situación actual, o sea, el panorama. ¿Es clave para mejorar la gobernanza y la rendición de cuentas? Definitivamente. El diálogo, la coordinación y la participación siguen siendo esenciales para lograr cambios duraderos. Consideramos que en las mesas existentes se pueden tomar mejores decisiones para que podamos ir cubriendo las brechas de nuestro país. En capacidades institucionales, pues corresponde fortalecerlas, tanto las técnicas como las operativas, en una coordinación nacional, ver las líneas y los roles entre el sector, tanto del ente rector como el ente regulador y el ente prestador del servicio de agua potable, como lo decía Wilber, son las municipalidades, pueden ser públicos y también en algún momento privados. Una aprobación legislativa que también hacer, digamos, el contacto con la parte del Congreso a medida de tener avances en el tema, los consensos y por sobre todo que exista una voluntad política para poder ver este tema es fundamental, con búsquedas de un financiamiento sostenible para asegurar una eficiencia y eficacia en los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento, con el lema que la reforma requiere tiempo, continuidad institucional y liderazgo para traducir los avances políticos en cambios normativos y operativos hacia un enfoque de sostenibilidad y por sobre todo el garantizar aspectos de calidad, continuidad, costo asequible, con enfoque de desarrollo sostenible en los servicios de agua potable y saneamiento en el país. Muchas gracias. Le doy la palabra a Wilber. Por favor, Wilber.
Muy bien, gracias. Vamos a finalizar con esta última diapositiva sobre los principales aprendizajes. Uno de los primeros aprendizajes que hemos tenido es que el gobierno debe ser el protagonista. El liderazgo y aprobación ha sido por parte del Ministerio de Salud, lo cual para nosotros ha sido importante o esencial para avanzar y esto pues va a ganar obviamente legitimidad. La segunda lección aprendida ha sido que la co-creación también genera legitimidad, involucrar a diferentes actores, porque también estamos trabajando con la red de agua y saneamiento de Guatemala, que se llama RASGUA, y esto ha sido desde el inicio. Entonces, esto también ha permitido generar confianza, buscar algunas soluciones más pertinentes, porque hay actores que conocen el sector muy bien en Guatemala. La tercera lección aprendida ha sido pues que el cambio sistémico toma su tiempo, como ya lo decía Oliverio. Hemos tenido avances, tenemos una iniciativa de ley en borrador. También hemos tenido ya avance político, ¿verdad? Hemos tenido acercamiento con el legislativo, con el Congreso de la República. Pero obviamente esto no puede ser tan rápido porque depende mucho de la voluntad política y procesos de abogacía que puede tomar su tiempo. Entonces, esta asistencia técnica va a requerir continuidad. La cuarta lección ha sido que la asistencia técnica funcionó mejor como facilitadora y no como ejecutora. Como ya lo había dicho, pues nuestro rol no ha sido pues hacer nosotros las cosas directamente, sino facilitar los consensos a través de talleres, acompañar a esas decisiones con información. Y la última lección aprendida es que la sostenibilidad depende mucho de la voluntad política y de la capacidad institucional. Entonces estamos en proceso todavía de presentar esto en el Congreso, estamos ya muy cerca, pero pues el éxito va a ser cuando eso se apruebe, ¿verdad? Y que su implementación posteriormente también sea efectiva y luego pues pensar también en las capacidades que va a tener esta entidad. Eh, Guatemala es el único país en Latinoamérica que no tiene una entidad reguladora. Entonces ahora vemos una buena oportunidad a través de la asistencia técnica para poder avanzar en este proceso. Entonces puede ser un desafío bastante importante, un poco ambicioso, pero creo que vamos avanzando muy bien. Entonces muchas gracias por la atención. Yo lo dejo por ahí. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Now we are going to hear from Rwanda. Rwanda team, please.
Thank you, Tony. I am Olivier Kanangere from IRC Wash Rwanda. I'm with my colleague from the Ministry of Infrastructure. We'll be the co-presenter for the case of Rwanda. I start with the experience for Rwanda, the technical assistance from the Agenda for Change focused on the World Sector Performance Review and development of the multi-year action plan. Actually, this technical assistance came at the right time when the government of Rwanda was developing the National Strategy for Transformation, NST2, which is a national guiding document aligned with the government priorities. Actually, it is in line with the presidential term from 2024 to 2029. It came also at the time the wash sector was developing the sector strategic plan from 2024 to 2029. The wash sector performance review was conducted through this technical assistance using the building block assessment tool to look at the sector in the lens of the 9 building blocks, to look at the strengths and the weakness of each of the building block, but the ultimate goal was to come up with priority activities to be developed in order to address some of the gaps highlighted under specific building block. This process, the whole process was owned by the Minister of Infrastructure through our Sun Secretariat, which is in charge of the coordination of the all wash partners. Along the national strategic document, the detailed Maritia action plan actually provides quite a number of the detailed activities to be done in that period of the 5 years. And this facilitated the coordination of the sector in order to reduce the overlap and ensure the alignment with the government priority, since the Maritia action plan was in line, the one that was developed was in line with sector strategic plan as well as the national strategy for transformation. So the technical assistance came just to reinforce the implementation of the activities contributing to the achievement of the government through any national strategy for transformation. To next. But to make sure that this Maritia action plan is owned by the all wash partners, there have been a lot of consultation which involves 50 wash stakeholders through the different consultation and the workshop under the leadership of the Minister of Infrastructure through the WASAN Secretariat. The idea was to come up with the Maritia action plan to be used as reference document for planning. So it highlights the activity to be done across 5 years, but of course, as all the wash partners prepare the work plan on annual basis, they refer to the already developed Maritia action plan and to come up with the annual work plan. And they're quite sure that all the activities highlighted in the Maritia action plan are in line with the government's priorities. On the side of the government, I mean the Ministry of Infrastructure, the Maritia action plan is used as a tool for monitoring the implementation of the WASH priority, aligned with the National Strategy for Transformation, as well as the sector strategic plan. So when it comes to running along this process of the technical assistance, the already developed Maritia action plan synchronized the fragmented project into one unified roadmap, which means that when you are coming in the sector and you want to know what needs to be done in the wash sector that are aligned with the national strategy for transformation target, you refer to that Maritia action plan. So we have one document with clear roadmap and with even estimated budget to implement those activities, each activities with the estimated budget. Of course, all the budgets, we come up with the estimated budget, but it's up to any partner want to invest to mobilize the fund accordingly. Other earnings like a long-term investment blueprint, we know that we need these amounts in the sector to implement the specific activities. And since that Maritia Action Plan, apart from highlighting the activity as well as the budget, it has a section also highlighting the potential funders based on the mandate of different WASH partners, as well as the area for the collaboration they have with the Ministry of Infrastructure. Also, to the side of the Ministry of Infrastructure, it enables the Ministry of Infrastructure through Wasan Secretariat to conduct the regular review of the implementation of the Maritim Action Plan through the joint sector review. Since the process is already on from the beginning by the Ministry of Infrastructure, normally they make the regular joint sector review to look at the implementation progress of activity implemented by different WASH partners. This Maritim Action Plan is also assessed through that joint sector review. So we are quite sure that this process is also embedded in the government process, which is quite easier when it comes to the sustainability of these activities resulting from the technical assistance from the agenda for change. So when it comes to system change, I can give the floor to my colleague from Ministry of Infrastructure to talk about the system change, as they are the one custodian of the Maritim Action Plan as well as the whole sector performance review report. Over to you, Mrs. Owens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olivier. My name is Yoasi Amkamwiza. I'm in charge of policy, research, and development expert in Water Sanitation Directorate under Ministry of Infrastructure, specifically under SWAP, Secretariat Coordination. System change has just come as a game changer to our sector, because it improved a lot, starting from the planning. The process came when we have issues of planning, especially to coordinate the funding mechanism from the partner. Yes, we had the sector working group, but when it came to planning, there was not this coordinated planning where we know where everyone is going to invest the coin. So with this system strengthening, we are able to plan together through development of district investment plans. This is an approach introduced before the system, but when the system joined, we were able to strengthen it further so that each district is able to know the priority, because it was like a sector-led way path approach, where the district itself could sit and identify their needs in a participatory approach, and then they come up with the priority based on their needs. So with this, it helped us to improve planning on the national level, downstream, because now every district, we have 30 districts, including the 3 districts in the state of Kigali, but in the rural areas, we have 27 districts. As we speak, all districts have the investment plans that details the budget required for development of new infrastructure, rehabilitating the old ones, even in terms of capacity building. So this system helps the sector in general to understand the framework and then to improve coordination as well. Yes, as my colleague had just mentioned, the performance evaluation that is always done at the sector level through the reflection workshops, where we sit and we deep dive. It is always done twice a year, where we sit and deep dive so that we look at the challenges, and then from the challenges, we come up with the action plan that has been my colleague has been mentioning through development of multi-action plan. Currently, we are implementing the NST2, the National Transformation Tool, and then the sector strategic plan that runs from 2024 to 2029. So with this, the system has embedded all the parameters into the building blocks where everyone knows when to do what, because it is the MITIA that has the budget, the timelines, and the responsible institution. This helps us to monitor, to cross-check, and even to plan together. So not only the planning parameter in terms of budgeting and planning, but also the system helped the sector to develop the monitoring tool, which is WASH MIS, WASH Monitoring Information System. It has been developed. Currently, it is under upgraded so that we can have all embedded, because the water and sanitation sector is growing wide and narrow, so that we are including every parameter. Talk of the solid waste management, talk of the climate resilience, the infrastructure, talk of the wastewater, and name them. So with this, the system has come to improve planning list, because before the system, development partners could just meet with the local authorities and then, okay, wow, we have issue of water, please bring your water points and just distribute, and the community is okay. But when it comes to the connectivity, you find there was no connectivity, there was no proper planning. So that fragmented planning was critical by the time. To mention this, the MITIA helps avoid duplication of efforts in terms of time and time, budget, and repetitive things that cannot yield the objective of the sector. We are trying to have 100% service of water supply and sanitation by the time of 2024 implementation of NSC2. But without this system strengthening, we cannot move together. We cannot move in the same with the common goal. So the multi-action plan is developed and checked and monitored so that we ensure the government priorities are supported by the development partners within the sector. Again, the system strengthening came as game changer in a way that it improved the capacity building of local authorities, and also the young engineers, the youth professionals, and other learning institutions could benefit. Even at the Ministry of Infrastructure, we have implementing agents for water and sanitation as a government arm. The system were able to train the engineers, to train at the community level, the water user committees, and even to train the district washboards. Those are the frameworks that are always make planning downstream, check the services around water and sanitation, and at the benefit of the community. So this was important to have the system around water and sanitation, and we are celebrating through the development of the so-called district investment plan. Some projects were embedded to be as a program. Now we are working towards having a program. Some programs have started in different districts, but co-financed by different development partners, including institutions. We sit on the table, we see, look, this is the service level that you have in this to this amount. on maybe on a certain period of maybe 5 years, but the budget is done on annual basis. Then they start to implement such program. To mention some programs you have on ground, you have Karongi Watch program that was born as a result of this system that was developed through this Game Changer. And then you have Nyamagabe District Watch program. We have many of them. But the beauty part of it is that every partner joins together, check on their priority, then they bring money. It increases accountability, it improves the supervision from the district level, and then it increases the ownership. Again, the system helps the sector in terms of sustainability of infrastructure and services. We used to have development plans could just invest money, submit the finished product to the district, but they could just break within 1 year or some months. But with this one, it improved system strengthening, because it improved the ownership, accountability, because they start together and then they monitor together as well. With that, we also developed management information system, customer information system, because with the water and sanitation sector, the flow is there is a private sector involvement where we have private operators managing rural water infrastructure. But of course, with the of water and sanitation reduced number of non-revenue water, because there was no this ownership, there was no capacity in terms of repair and maintenance, but this one has improved the knowledge, the technical know-how, the technicians downstream, they are now know what to do because of the trainings that they obtained from this, the whole chain of the system change. So what my colleague has just mentioned on the plan, we sit and see, we take the opportunity of the challenges, and then from the challenges we have the projects. Then from the project we make a single action plan that is being approved by permanent secretary in the Ministry of Infrastructure and then implemented by different partners. This is something that we do within the sector working group. You have the co-chair. Currently, the chair is the permanent secretary. The co-chair of the sector is the African Development Bank. So this is something that we always admire, and we look forward to continue with the change, because we are bringing a new era of having now the universal access to the village level, to the community level, not only looking at the infrastructure, but also the services. We can have good infrastructure, but without services, now it's not the move for the government. Now we are looking at the services, the host of the connection, the capacity building, the youth involvement, the innovations, the non-revenue water reduction. We used to have 50% of non-revenue water reduction, but we are aiming to have 25% at the end of two. So that's something that we really appreciate for the impact that we see, and that we can witness, and we are looking forward for more. And then through the report.
Sorry, Leoncira, we are a bit running out of time. Would you wrap this up?
Okay. Yeah, please. Yeah, that's all. I think that's all from our side. It's something to have the game changer as system strengthening, and we are looking forward to keep it.
Thank you. Thank you, Leoncira. Thank you, Olivia. And also thank you, Cambodia and Guatemala colleagues, sharing with us three very different contexts, three very different approach to technical assistance. But what unites them is that all of them make meaningful system change. So now I'm going to have a poll to test whether you pay attention to the presentation. So, from what you heard, what is the most critical factor for TA to translate into sustained government action? Okay. Have we closed the poll by now?
You should be seeing the results on your screen.
It's not showing up for me. Okay.
I can read
Yeah.
them off.
Sure.
We had a catch-all here, which is all of the above, which was the most popular answer with 61%. And there was a tie also between political ownership and institutional anchoring, a lower percentage for adequate financing. We had nothing for
Brilliant.
capacity or coordination.
Thank you, Alex. So now we have Louis here. Also want to hear from a donor perspective about TA. Louis, over to you.
Thanks, Tommy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, first of all, I'm the wrong donor. The right donor here is the donor that actually supported this work, the VTOL Foundation. George is currently traveling and unable to join, so that you guys are stuck with me. But I will do my best to give you the donor perspective on this. A quick way of putting that is Osprey does support the agenda for change overall, but I would have been happy to have been the donor that supported this work. And the reason for that is, from my perspective, this is a really good illustration of what the real work of system strengthening looks like. This is as good an illustration as I can imagine of how you get this work done. Let me step back and I'll just make a couple of points here, and then we'll get on to the Q&A, which will be much more interesting than my comments. But this goes back to what some of you have heard me talk about before as the definition of success in the WASH sector, which is not about hardware. And we just heard that actually from the woman from the Rwandan government. It's not about hardware, it's about sustainable systems and keeping those systems running. And to me, this illustrated the two parts of what it takes to strengthen systems. One part is what I would call the what, which we're all familiar with, the building blocks that it takes to do this work. But the other part is the how, which is to say the networking, the relationships of the people and the institutions, the incentives, the motivations, the connections that keep all of this working. And I see this as a terrific example, multiple examples of how those worked. The other part, of course, is that central to all of this is government functioning and leading, not necessarily doing it. Government doesn't have to be the service provider. In fact, often it's better if it's not. But it does have to take the lead in terms of the regulations and the funding, at least part of the funding for this. This is a great illustration of how to help government do a better job. So here are my quick takeaways on all of this. The first is related to learning I have from the private sector, which is that market-driven companies do better than technology-driven companies. And in this case, and what that means is you have to listen to the market, and the market, if you will, in this case, is the government. So you really have to listen to what the government is doing and help them do a better job. Part of that is to come into a situation and, instead of assuming you know what needs to be done, diagnosing the situation. There are many different elements of system strengthening, but what matters in each situation and at a given time in each situation is different. And that takes the quality of diagnosing the situation and figuring out what you need to do. Another part of this, as was said by several of the speakers, is this is a long-term process. This is not something that happens in a month or a year or even a couple of years. You have to see the arc of the process and see where you're helping that progress along. In that regard, a key lesson for funders from this is that it's about contribution, not attribution. The role of the funder is to help the process along and find ways to strengthen the systems. And I think these are great examples of figuring out how to do that. And I think they worked because the country collaborations that are the basis of the way the Agenda for Change work very closely with government, listen to government, and figured out that in each of these cases and in the other cases, in the other countries, they figured out what, through the diagnostic process, what would help the government most with a relatively small amount of money. And as was said at the beginning of this, these are relatively small amounts of money. So I guess the final point I would make here, two final points. One is these are very diverse examples, but I actually see a through line along all of them, which is that this is about strengthening the system. And if what's needed right now is to strengthen the younger leaders or the future leaders of the system so they know how to do this better in the future, then that's important. If what's important is to, as in the case of Guatemala, is to say, hey, there really does need to be a regulator here because there are no reasonable wash systems that don't have regulators, then helping the government figure out how to do that was critical. And in the case of Rwanda, which is further, which is further down that path, I would say, then how do we actually do this at the practical level, and how do we strengthen the system and make this system work better? My final point is this. The last couple of weeks, within the last month, we've had the announcement of the Water Forward movement led by the World Bank and involving 10 multilateral development banks. We've got the UN Water Conference coming up at the end of the year, for which there have been preparatory sessions. I sorely hope that the people who are involved at those very high levels take the time and learn from these sorts of examples, because this is the way the work actually gets done. This is how things get done at the country level and at the district level. And there is an enormous amount to be learned from this. So I will end my comments there and thank the participants in this, the governments and the implementers and all the other partners, as well as Agua Consult for helping us learn from this situation. So back to you, Tommy.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you for great insights, very practical advice. So now it's time for us to ask questions to the panel, to the presenters. So so first, if you have any question you want to ask to the presenter, please either just take the mic or put it in the chat box. So the faster you speak up, then your question will get addressed.
Tommy, I know Kate had a question. It's been
Yeah.
buried. It was for Leoncia, who unfortunately had to leave.
Oh, okay. So,
but it was, why did the government of Rwanda choose to work with Agenda for Change?
That's right.
Or what encouraged them to do so?
Perhaps Olivier can respond to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, actually, the government of Rwanda worked with the Agenda for Change through IRC. Of course, we know what is going on in Rwanda, and as we realized that there is a need to develop that multi-action plan, worked with the Agenda for Change. Of course, when we came up with that request, it was supported by the government as there needs to develop that multi-action plan. It was not the initiative from the government, but it was initiative from IRC. with the support of the government of Rwanda, and our request was addressed to Agenda for Change.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question? Raise your hand, speak up, type in the chat box.
Let me just follow up on that for a
Yeah.
sec, Tommy. Olivier, it may have been an IRC initiative, but I would presume that it was an IRC initiative based on a lot of engagement with the government, listening to the government, and saying, okay, how can we help you? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that of course we discussed with the government, and there is the need of the government, and even we informed the government about the application for the technical assistance to conduct the sector performance review, as well as the development of the Mariti Action Plan. So right from the beginning, the process was owned by the government.
Great,
I think
thank you.
Thank you.
it might be fair to add, Tommy, to just support Olivier, as we were privy to the process. The TA was positioned by the broader collaboration. So that's Water for People, Water Aid, IRC, and then World Vision was also involved. But it was the collective that identified IRC as the potential provider of the support. But the offer was essentially positioned within the broader collaboration, while IRC was the one availing the TA support itself.
Okay.
A
Thank you.
team
Thank you.
effort. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you for the collab. Yeah. Great. So meanwhile, as you are thinking about your question, I do have a question for Wilbert. Wilbert, I would like to hear from you. What does true co-ownership between government and partners look like in practice?
Sí, ok, gracias.
Yes.
Pues en este caso, el del Ministerio de Salud ha estado involucrado desde el inicio de esta asistencia técnica. Estamos hablando a finales del año 2024. Ha participado en las convocatorias de talleres, por ejemplo, con diferentes actores, porque han estado involucrados la academia, el sector privado, las municipalidades que son los prestadores y ONGs. Entonces, el Ministerio de Salud ha estado facilitando, digamos, ese proceso de convocatoria. Entonces, también esto me trae una reflexión porque si supongamos que mañana terminara este apoyo de Agenda para el Cambio, yo estoy seguro que el Ministerio de Salud puede continuar con el proceso porque creo que está bastante empoderado de esta iniciativa. Porque ya lo dije al inicio, esta iniciativa no va a terminar en poco tiempo porque estamos también dentro de un marco político que tenemos que definir una hoja de ruta y esa hoja de ruta tiene que ver con las voluntades políticas, ¿verdad? Principalmente del Congreso de la República, que el Congreso es quien aprueba las leyes y prácticamente esta creación de una entidad reguladora tiene que ver con la creación de una ley. Entonces sí es un desafío muy importante, pero el Ministerio de Salud cada vez ha venido fortaleciendo su capacidad. Ahora ya cuenta con una dirección de agua y saneamiento. Anteriormente no existía esa dirección. Entonces tenemos se ve esa capacidad por parte del Ministerio que creo que puede asumir ese rol posterior a la asistencia técnica. Solamente y gracias.
Brilliant. Yes, it's exciting to see this this collaboration and what is leading to. So I don't see any other questions. So well, I am going to ask the next one. So my next one, I want to ask to Sakun. So what will what will still be in place in 3 years because of the work you have done related? Oh, sorry, Lewis, do you have a comment on the previous question?
No, I was just putting my hand in the queue once you're done with asking your
sure.
question.
Okay, so let me ask Sakun this question, and then Louis, you are next. So Sakun, what will still be in place in 3 years because the work with the youth?
Yep, thank you, Tommy. I think I can just pick only two points, and one is focus about the government-led system strengthening. So if you're looking for what we can contribute in the sector, because the government is keep changing the structure and also the people movement and changing the role. So related to the government strategy, they focus on the people first. So they focus on human resource development, and they create a capacity development plan that they try to promote the people to build the quality and performance the role by improving the capacity. So the way that we support the government to co-develop about the war system strengthening manual, that we are going to working with the government to continue use the tool with their existing capacity training platform, like the online platform that Ministry of Rural Development just launching, and then we will embed this module into the existing platform. And we're looking from the local lead or decentralization, that we working with the department that responsible for provide the capacity of the government to promote the local lead development. We can finding the opportunity to embed this system strengthening concept to their training curriculum, especially related to the university that working with the youth for the long-term continuity and also implement this application. And related to the young leadership perspective, as our supported youth who join in the young professional program, most of them is still working in the sector in Cambodia, and we have alumni that we still keep people to engage each other, and also we keep those youth group to exchange the knowledge and also promotes the using of the system strengthening, not just only in the WASH sector, but if you're looking about the system connect, they can apply those concepts to different sector. Thank you. Back to
Thank
you,
you. Great
Tommy.
to hear that. Louis, over to you.
Well, I have two questions. One for the country teams. I'm curious how much the TA basically allowed the government to do things that it already knew it needed to do, but didn't have the capacity necessarily to do on its own, as opposed to allowed the government to sort of try new things that it would have liked to have tried, but may not have had thought about before without the support of an external the external technical assistant. So I'm curious about the balance between those, or whether that's relevant to the way they're working. And then I had a question for Ben as to one of the slides towards the end of your presentation said that not much of this was used for downstream work. And that didn't surprise me at all, because it's the downstream implementation work that tends to get most of the funding. But it's this upstream work in terms of the system strengthening where it's harder to get supported. So I wasn't quite sure why you thought it would be more relevant for relatively small amounts of funding to focus on downstream instead of upstream.
Okay. Who would like to answer first?
I was just typing in the chat box to agree with Louis on system strengthening and the TA supporting more of the upstream than downstream, because there is a lot of downstream activities that attract a lot of funding, but without the upstream systems those initiatives on downstream, they may not function well or they may not last long. So I thought the TA focusing more and more at upstream, I think, was just the right thing to do. But anyway, there is no right or wrong, but I think it was the best way of using the resources. Thank you, and over.
Thank you, Kate. So yeah, Benjamin would like to let the countries go first before he comes back to Louis' question. Anyone? Maybe they are thinking how, yeah,
I may have been
formulating
making,
their response.
you know, Tommy, I may have been making a distinction there between what they knew they wanted to do and what maybe they weren't sure needed to be do, but needed some help to identify. Maybe that's not a, you know, a appropriate distinction to be made in working with the government. So.
Okay. So well, maybe yeah. So we'll wait for the countries to formulate the response. Yeah, maybe Benjamin, would you like to just answer this upstream downstream question?
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best to try. I mean, I think ultimately maybe it's a poor use of language by me. When we're talking about downstream, we're not necessarily talking about direct service provision, but technical assistance, which can help directly create the conditions for higher quality service provision. So I think in the case of Guatemala, ensuring that there's clear regulation of service providers. But we can also think of financing for service providers, supporting capacity development for utilities. I think one of the things that struck out for me when we were doing through the document review and talking with various sort of stakeholders who are involved in this TA facility, that we didn't really see service providers. We didn't see any engagement with utilities. So I think for me, it's really a question of balance. I think the upstream work, engagement with government, working on coordination at high levels is important. But ultimately, we also need to be engaging those actors that are ultimately responsible for delivering services and ensuring that they are also involved in the sort of efforts to strengthen the system. And I think when we looked across all 5 cases, the fact we saw very little of that raised a question for us. We're not saying that every single example of technical assistance needs to think more directly about service providers, but across 5 examples, I think we'd like to see that there's a bit more balance, where in addition to the high level things, we're also thinking about how we sort of work with service providers. And I think for me, that partly comes back to what our initial brief was looking at the impact of the technical assistance facility. And essentially, when you're looking at, I'll pick an example here in Uganda, which wasn't covered in this presentation, but in Uganda, the work was to support the development of a process around the interministerial roadmap for system strengthening, which is good work, but the jump between that and impact on service provision in the water system is quite big, so it's much harder to show the impact. So I think I've talked long enough, but really it's about balancing high level things which are much more indirect path to impact to some activities where we see a much clearer link to impact to balance that out. Does that answer your question, Louis?
It does, but I think it sort of raises the question of what's the goal of particularly of the agenda for change country collaborations, because those include partners that do support a lot of the more downstream, you know, the more downstream work. But I think I'm not at all surprised that the TA went to these sorts of activities. In fact, I think it's more appropriate that it went to these activities than to the more downstream, because that does get more of the funding. And the fact that it makes it harder to figure out what the impact is doesn't mean that it's less impactful, just means that it's harder to measure. And often the things that are harder to measure because they're upstream or less direct, that's not that they're less important. They're just, in fact, they're probably more important to get done correctly because they have so many knock-on effects down the system. It just means they're harder to measure. And that makes your job harder as the consultant, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the focus should have been on the types of TA that would have been easier to measure. In fact, I would argue that that's probably not the point of this TA. But maybe I'm not from VTOL. I don't know what they would have wanted.
Thank you, everyone. So yeah, we have only a few minutes left in this today's meeting, so I'm going to wrap this up. So if you do have more questions, just put it in the chat box. I'm sure that Alec and Bethlehem will collect this and share it with our presenters. So the next slide, please. So today we have heard about experience from different people about TA, and many of us will in some way or form involved in TA. Could be someone who may be managing a TA or providing services through a TA or commissioning TA, or different ways. So just, yeah, I want to hear from you. Put it in the chat box, please, everyone. Put it in the chat box as to what, after hearing today's experience, what would you do differently? What would you do differently next time you are involved in a TA?
So can I say something? I'm Olivier from Rwanda.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, when it comes to development of the multi-year action plan with the costing, actually we had to get the commitment from different partners, the commitment on the implementation of the activities. But what was quite challenging is the commitment of the fund for 5 years. And sometimes they need to make like the consultation to come up with the figures that they are going to raise in implementation of the multi action plan. So there was not much time to get the commitment from the partners. We came up with the estimated cost, but we know that in the period of the 5 years, the Minister of Infrastructure will lead the review of the multi action plan and make some of the adjustments where necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. So yeah, so please, if you haven't typed in the chat box, yeah, what would you do differently next time you are involved in TA? I want to hear, yeah, from more people. I see that, right, Lillian, thank you for your great input, recognizing small gains, celebrate them, and because it takes time to see measurable change. I see, yeah, Sakun about more government locally led system strengthening, Susan about evidence-based results. Yeah, using both vertical horizontal approach, system strengthening. Wilbur said invest more time to map the stakeholders. Yeah, it's all very good ideas. Very good. All right. Yeah. So we will move on to the next slide. So this slide, Bethlehem, is this your slide?
Thanks, Tommy. Yeah, I can do a readout, and then you can perhaps add some insights as well. What people have mentioned earlier in the chat is quite valuable. I think it aligns well with some of the challenges or issues that come about when engaging or investing in technical assistance activities. And one of the key learnings that are highlighted in the learning document. By the way, we'll be launching the learning document this week, the one that AGO Consult supported us with. And one of the key findings is designing monitoring frameworks from the outset is quite critical, but it also needs to take into consideration that TA activities, especially system strengthening oriented TAs, are very iterative. So there is a learning by doing, and there's also a reflection process, and there's also going back to the drawing board at times, but still being able to measure the impact to the level best is quite critical from the onset. The other key takeaway for us as Agenda for Change as a community is how do we measure systems change from small scale TAs? I personally think an infusion of technical assistance can be quite catalytic if there is a very intentional and clear sense of the leveraging impact that the TA activity can have on bigger investment, but also the sector at large. But this is a key point. And the last point is, how do we ensure TA reaches all the way to the people it's meant to serve? And this is essentially the custodians of the system, government, and the people that we're all striving to serve as WASH actors. So these are just bits of information that we would like our members to take with them in their systems backpack today. Back to you, Tommy.
Thank you, Bethlehem. So we are at time, and we also on the last slide. Well, thank you everyone for today attending today's session and great input, questions, insights from everyone. Is a recording will be shared shortly, and so see you next time.
Thank you to our speakers and to Tommy and Ben for your
Thanks,
co-facilitation.
everyone.
And
Thanks,
to the
everyone.
interpreters, gracias a las intérpretes.
Thank you, everyone. This was a fantastic session.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Terrific
Thanks,
job.
Louis. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tommy.